Hi, Kedar.
Hi. Hi, Saurabh. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your time. So I'm looking forward to this great session with you with a lot of learnings.
Yeah.
And guys, thank you so much for joining us today evening. Today we have Kedar Bhat from Pune, and Kedar has been a freelance photojournalist for 15 years. So he has really a great experience. And then I think he left and he is now doing a lot of photo tours and teaching and mentoring people and taking people around to different places around India and the world, including Iceland. So I welcome Kedar to this session. So thank you so much for joining us once again. So please tell us a little bit about your life journey as a photographer.
I started, I'm a physics graduate basically,
Okay.
and I started this as, of course, as with everyone, as a hobby. Then slowly, my pictures started appearing in local newspapers, and then uh, after it started I started with the Times of India supplements. There was a local supplement, and then from there, those editors, they from the day when they liked my images, I used to send some offbeat images, not of news and everything.
Okay.
And then they liked it. They asked me if I can send them some more images. I sent them more images, and then they started assignments,
Okay.
and that's how it started. And then it's good when you see your name every day in the newspapers. Of course,
Right.
nowadays it's not that glory. I mean, that's
Right.
the past.
Right.
And then yeah, that's how it started. And then I started with this local newspapers. Then I started with the as a freelancer, of course, for
Okay.
PTI. Then I joined Outlook, and it began.
Okay. Okay.
My primary interest was astrophotography, though, but there is no
Okay.
money in astrophotography. So,
Right. Right.
for that matter, even wildlife photography, there is no money.
Right, right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, how did you start? I mean, what inspired you to take some pictures, and how did it appear in the press? So, if you can tell us a little bit about in detail, that will be great.
Yeah. So, see, these local supplements that Times of India had, or any other newspaper, so otherwise there are standard pictures of news and everything. And then I used to submit something different.
Okay.
I used to submit some macro images, some
Hmm.
night shots of uh,
Right.
city lights and
Hmm.
everything. And this is about more than 20 years back.
Okay.
Today,
Okay.
it's not a big deal to take macro photos or night
Right.
shots and everything. But that time, with film, it was rocket science, quite honestly,
Right.
and it was
Right.
a very expensive hobby. So very
Right.
expensive.
Mhm.
And then once your images get started, uh, people see your images, see your work. Then in that area, I used to live in Thane near Bombay.
Mhm.
Uh, all the newspapers, the news outlets, and everyone, slowly they started knowing me. Used to see my bylines around the
Okay.
pictures,
Okay.
and
Mhm.
then they started giving me assignments. And I used to work for a number of papers. I mean, a single event, my image used to appear in almost 4 or 5 different newspapers.
Okay. Okay.
News, primarily news, and then some offbeat images. Offbeat
Okay.
is something beyond the news. I mean,
Mhm.
if something is happening in front of you, that's the very obvious thing. But if you shoot some different expression, some different angle,
Right.
and maybe it's not news relevant,
Mm.
like you typically see those images where there is no big event happening, but it's a very interesting story.
Okay.
Like, for
Okay.
example, I remember one image. There was uh, some protest, and police was that was news photography, of course. And then police used to take away, round up the people who used to protest, and they used to burn that effigy and all.
Right.
So
Right.
what had happened is, there was one policeman who caught hold of that effigy,
Okay.
and then he was running with it,
Hmm.
take it in his custody. I
Okay.
got that nice picture. So these are offbeat images where the main event is of the effigy and the protest, but this is something interesting, like a full effigy, and the policeman is carrying that and running with it.
Right.
So I used to have a lot of this offbeat images, and in that fraternity, people used to like my offbeat images, and I used to be known as an offbeat photographer. And
Okay.
then it slowly, my main interest was astrophotography or even wildlife photography or nature landscape
Hmm.
photography.
Right.
But as you also know it quite well, there is no career in it per se,
Right.
like
Right.
selling your images. I mean, there
Right.
is career in photography tours or other way.
True. True. True.
But by selling images, at least today, I don't know any wildlife photographer who makes big money out of selling wildlife
Okay.
images.
I don't think so.
Even astronomy.
Right. Right.
That's the last thing.
Right.
And then it started that way. Uh, Astronomy also, I was doing MSc in astronomy,
Okay.
Bombay
Wow.
University, but midway I left it and I thought I'll go full time with photography.
Okay.
And this freelancing went on with the local newspapers, then national newspapers,
Hmm.
uh, right from Times of India, Hindustan Times, everywhere.
Okay.
PTI, I used to contribute for PTI in my
Great.
area, Thane district.
Okay.
Freelancer, of course.
Hmm.
And I had made up my mind to do freelancing as always. I mean, uh, and then finally, I did get lot of time, some opportunities to join some publication.
Okay.
I refused it, uh, just for the sake of. I mean, I don't. Once you are comfortable with your freelancing, you'll never like to work somewhere.
Right. That's right.
But then when Outlook people, they wanted a photographer, Outlook magazine.
Hmm.
So they wanted a photographer, full-time photographer for their Mumbai office.
Hmm.
Uh, and uh, and 2-3 times we had a conversation, but they knew that I won't join, but they still kept me asking. So once when finally I said, let me just try how is it to work as a photographer, as a to get a salary out of photography.
Okay.
Working in a national magazine like Outlook, so then I joined Outlook, and but that was hardly 1 year.
Hmm.
And within 1 year, I thought that I'll freelance again. So I told them I'm happy with my freelancing,
Okay. Hmm.
and then again I quit and started freelancing.
Hmm.
Uh, then I started teaching,
Hmm.
taking workshops, a lot of photography tours,
Great. Great.
and slowly I switched to wildlife photography, but again workshops and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But no money, no money by selling images.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because the stock and all, people talk about stock photography and everything, but quite honestly, today the kind of the number of good images that you have to submit and kind of money that you get back
Right.
after,
Right.
it's like a there is no guarantee.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then
People think it's a very glamorous profession, but actually it's very difficult to survive.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very difficult. And see, earlier it was film, so there were hardly any photographers.
Right.
I remember when I used to contribute for this Times of India and all,
Hmm.
we used to know photographers by name. That okay, Bombay hai, Mumbai hai, so there are these few photographers. You could count it on your hands.
Right. Right.
And only they used to be very serious. And later on when we come, we'll go through the images. I'll
Hmm.
particularly talk about one particular image, uh, how it was at that time.
Right.
And so that's how it is.
Great. Great.
Yeah.
Great. So, Kedar, I can't wait to go through your pictures. So we'll go through them one by one, and in between, I'll ask you a few questions that I have for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And one last thing that I
yeah,
forgot to mention is
yeah,
that after all these workshops and everything,
right,
uh, the career part of it,
right.
finally Sony wanted me on their board. So
Okay,
now I'm a Sony mentor. So they
right,
call it artisan.
right. Hmm.
So now I'm a Sony artisan. So
Great,
that's the journey till
great,
Sony.
great, great. Awesome.
Yeah, continue.
Sure. So I'm just going to share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. It's such a wonderful image.
Yeah. So these are Lee fans, and they. So this picture was taken in Goa,
Okay,
and this was on one of my workshops, and uh, no flash was used for this particular image. It is available light image, macro
okay,
image, of course,
okay.
and Now these ants are not very tiny like your house, the
Mm-hmm.
kind of ants that you get in your house,
Right.
slightly
Right.
bigger. And one thing about wildlife photography is that your photography skills, technique is one thing, but understanding the subject and knowing the subject is a major plays a major role in wildlife photography, because nowadays the cameras are so advanced that
Right.
you
Right.
get some basic images, like for example a tiger. Later on when we come to tiger we'll see, but now these ants, if you notice, they have formed a bridge, and they follow a particular route, and you should know it that they are following that particular route, and then
Right.
keep a watch for that right moment. And in fact,
Mm.
this image, I was on my camera was on a tripod for almost 20-30 minutes, almost half an hour, at exact one place. And because of wind, these leaves used to go up, away, come back, and then these ants used to catch hold of the other leaf, and then there used to form a bridge, and there used to be ants crossing over this bridge of the
Wow.
ants.
Amazing.
So this thing you have to observe. I mean, you have to observe a
Right.
lot.
Right.
What I see is a lot of photographers, when they start with wildlife photography, uh, they focus more on number of images rather than stand out. I mean, your images should stand out,
Right.
some
Right.
exclusive image, some storytelling images. And as far as wildlife photography is concerned, I mean, as far as I am concerned with wildlife photography,
Mm.
I also like the beauty part of it. It's not, I mean, somehow I don't like those kills. Uh,
Mm.
I mean, they are amazing
Okay.
images, but I prefer not to show that. Uh,
Right.
and I like beauty in it, or maybe something where it's not visible to your eyes, like
Mm.
this event. Unless you
Mm.
go macro, this thing is not visible. With naked
Right.
eyes, you have to go very close to it. That's fine, but that's my choice to have the aesthetic point of view for wildlife photography.
Okay.
So
So,
everywhere, if you go to Yeur, Borivali National Park, Sanjay Gandhi
right.
Park,
Right.
everywhere you see
So,
this.
Kedar, what gear have you been using all the years?
Uh, Earlier, till I think last 3 years, 3 years back,
Mm-hmm.
till that point, I was a Nikon photographer. I used
Okay.
throughout I
Mm.
was using Nikon,
Mm.
and then 3 years back I shifted to Sony,
Okay.
and I mean that's the two things. I
Right.
mean, quite honestly, photography is one thing, uh, brand is one thing.
Right.
So, but of course, you have to keep pace with the advancements in the technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I found Sony to be a lot better, but that's personal choice.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Great.
for this image particularly, I used a 90 macro,
Okay.
particular image that you see, and it was
Mm-hmm.
on a Sony A7 Mark III camera.
Okay.
In Goa, there is a place called Nature's Nest.
Okay.
So this was shot at Nature's Nest. This Another thing with photographers sometimes is when we go to some area. For example, I'll share one experience where uh, if you go to a tiger reserve,
Mm.
everybody is behind the tiger, and
Right. Right.
those who have been to a tiger reserve, they know it very well.
Mm.
The moment they enter a park, it's like a frenzy, like tiger, 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 and they won't stop in between and just
Right.
go directly in front of a tiger.
Right.
Uh, I don't do that. Of course, if it's your first tiger that you're seeing, you have that excitement.
Mm.
But after you have seen a lot of tigers, you have to think beyond a tiger in a tiger reserve. Tigers, yes, 100%, we shoot those tigers. But after that, you should think of subjects beyond a tiger in a tiger reserve also. Like for example, when I was whatever pictures that I have taken, and at that time, a lot of my images used to get published in this Jet Wings, the Jet Airways in-flight magazine.
Right. Right. Right.
So I had a lot of covers in it, some inside stories also.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was one magazine called Discover India, so I used to
Right.
regularly
Right.
do some shoots for them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you will be surprised that none of my tiger image was ever published as a cover photo or something. It
Okay.
was just one of the image in the story, because
Mm-hmm.
see, tiger image, unless it's a very out of the earth image, that's fine. But
Mm-hmm.
a close up of a tiger head on, these are all standard every day, in every park.
Right. Right.
Thousands of
Right.
people shooting the same image.
Mm-hmm.
But the image that 2 3 times that was published on the front page of a jet wings, and there was another magazine. It was of a langur, and of course that image was a very strong image with a baby, and it was very emotional, kind of emotional
Okay.
appealing image, and that was taken in Tadoba Tiger Reserve. Then there
Okay.
was another image where I won one award. It was a sunbird that was again in Tadoba, and none of my tiger image has ever won me any award.
Okay.
The
Okay.
point is, if you go to, like here, this place, Goa, Nature's Nest, it's near Bhagwan Mahavir Sanctuary. So people
Mm-hmm.
go there for snakes, then bioluminescent fungus,
Mm.
and all that kind of hardcore macro subjects.
Okay.
So those images, yes, I got them, all those vipers and everything,
Mm.
but this image stands out.
Definitely. This is a
Yes.
lovely,
So
lovely image.
you go there doesn't mean you should go only for that subject. Keep your eye around and focus also on other subjects, and maybe that when you focus somewhere else, that might fetch you some award, or some you get some outstanding images.
Okay. So when you go to a place like this, do you have a checklist of subjects that you are going to shoot, or you just look around and find whatever you get?
Yeah, the way I see, I quite honestly, I'm not a biologist or a hardcore wildlifer. I mean, I'm very,
Mm-hmm.
when we talk of a wildlifer on a very serious note, uh, just having a big lens and a fancy camera doesn't make you a wildlife photographer.
Mm-hmm.
So I admit that I'm not a wildlife expert. I mean, when I say a wildlife expert, I'm very
Right.
serious about it. So I know I'm not a wildlife expert. So I make sure that I have experts with me. So
Okay.
if there is a biologist, or there is a person who
Mm.
is doing research on that, maybe in some area of wildlife. So I
Right.
make sure that I'm with those people,
Mm-hmm.
and they they tell you the behavior, they tell you the what to shoot, what not to shoot, uh, how to find out those subjects. So that's how I prefer. If you have your own, of course, once you are in some area and you know particular species in that jungle or in that area,
Mm.
of course you go on your own, and that also I do it. But I always prefer to have some expert in that field with me,
Right.
so life becomes
Mm.
easy, and you get thorough insight into the wildlife part of it. I mean, I see a lot of people going around on their own, and getting some amazing images, but if you don't have that natural history kind of touch to that images, for that
Absolutely.
you need experts in wildlife, and
I
I'm
fully
not
agree with
expert.
you. Because there are a lot of times I've been to places like Amboli, and I mean the snake is right in front of you, and I'm not able to see
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm not an expert.
exactly.
Yeah.
Their eyes are trained.
Right.
In fact, besides the point of spotting a wildlife subject, they also have the behavioral aspect of it. They
Right.
know how it will behave in certain scenario. So they
Right.
know
Right.
that, okay, now this animal might do something like this, so that maybe that behavioral part is a rare thing that can be captured. So for
Right.
that you need a wildlife expert,
Yeah. Definitely.
which I'm
Definitely.
not. My wildlife images might be good.
Mm.
I have fetched some, got some awards for some wildlife images, but that
Okay.
doesn't make me a wildlife photographer
Mm.
in that serious sense.
Mm. Great. I mean, you're very modest to say it like this.
I mean, that's
Okay.
the truth. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a question here, which Abhijit sir is asking, what was the reason that you found Sony to be better, and why did you shift from Nikon to Sony?
Yeah. See, Nikon, of course, I loved it. I had a complete range, right from 600 to 16 fisheye and
Oh my
everything I
God.
had.
Okay.
But at that point, when Sony was almost 5 years ahead of in the mirrorless sector.
Right. Right.
And So they were already advancing, and kind of features that now today, I mean, as of August 2020, you don't have to introduce a mirrorless. But three,
Right.
4 years back, it was very difficult for somebody to tell that mirrorless is the future.
Right.
And I saw it. Sony India, they also the Sony representative, they also handed me one camera to use. That let try it out and see how it works. And then I was amazed. I mean, the kind of features that were there in a mirrorless camera.
Mhm.
And that was the beginning, maybe 2 years back, 2.5, 3 years back, three
Right.
years back rather. So the moment I started using it, it was far ahead than what was there at that point of time. I mean, once you are using a mirrorless, you'll never go back to a DSLR.
True.
But at
Absolutely.
that point, there was one problem, a psychological problem with photographers, that mirrorless cameras, they are very small, tiny. The camera bodies are small, so you don't look like
Right.
a wildlife photographer unless you
Right.
have a big camera body and
Uh,
but if you see the specs, the eye autofocus and the 10 fps, the Sony Alpha 9,
right. Right. Right.
20 fps,
Mm.
and the kind of thing that DSLRs were giving, it was not matching.
Right.
Even the video, I mean, it's a hybrid camera.
Mm.
And
Right.
another aspect is, while I was doing the shift, uh, it so the Sony lenses and the entire ecosystem is amazing. I mean, you have almost 55. I mean, I'm not canvassing Sony, but there are 55 to 56 lenses,
Right.
right from 12 to 600
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
this entire native lenses, and native lenses is very important, just not adapted lenses.
Right. Right.
So all these things counted, and finally I decided to switch to Sony.
Okay.
So I hope this answers this question.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so Kedar, did you have any formal training in photography?
Uh, I had one very local course in Thane, a very small course, but that was uh, it. I did it, but after coming out of it, I didn't know what did I learn.
Okay.
So it was all hands-on with
Mm.
friends and all. I used to do a lot of trekking, and even for the astronomy, we used to go for stargazing.
Mm.
I used to see also do some astrophotography. So there were some photographer friends who were using a SLR, not a
Okay.
DSLR,
Mm.
SLR,
Right.
25 years back, 20, 25 years back. And when though with those friends, they used to teach me something. Uh, my first camera was a Zenith camera, Zenith
Okay. Yeah.
122 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that I mean, those who are your audience will be surprised to the those who haven't used a film camera. And with that Zenith camera, that single camera, I got that camera at that time for around 2,200 rupees. Okay,
Okay.
2,200 rupees
Mm-hmm.
SLR, and it had a 50 block lens,
Mm.
50 mm 1.8 manual focus, everything. It was a robust camera, and you'll be surprised, those who don't know about it. It had only some 6 to 7 shutter speeds, nothing beyond that. 1 by 30, 1 by 60, 1 by 125, 250, 500. I think 1000 was the maximum.
Okay.
500 or 1000 was the maximum shutter speed. And I think the slowest was 1 by 30 or 1 by 15, something like that.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay. Interesting.
it was film.
Mm.
So even with those with that limitations, my images used to get published in newspapers, in color supplements.
Great. Great.
So that's it.
So, Kedar, who are the photographers who have influenced you in whatever you are today?
uh, there are a lot of them. As far as news is concerned, I used to thoroughly go through National Geographic magazines. I have a huge
Okay.
collection of
Mm.
National Geographic magazines, and if you just go through those
Okay.
magazines, some photographers whom I used to regularly follow. I mean, I used to just look for those magazines and see if that photographer has published anything. So there was one Michael Yamashita.
Okay.
Then there was Nick Nichols,
Hmm.
wildlife photographer, uh, and David Allen Harvey. So these
Okay.
were news and some wildlife photographers also. Then so these were from the National Geographic whatever thing.
Hmm.
Then of course in India there is this Dhritiman Mukherjee.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So he's a hardcore wildlife photographer.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, uh, that's the reason I say I don't call myself a very good wildlife. He goes to the length and breadth of. I mean, he goes to the extremes and shoots wildlife.
Right.
So
Right.
these are few of the photographers that I respect.
Great. So let us move to the next
Bye.
image. That's you. Yeah.
Yeah. So as I said, wildlife photography and whatever astro, there is no money in it. So I also do some commercial work.
Right.
So this was the latest thing that I had done just before the lockdown. I think December or something, November or
Okay.
December. It
Okay.
was one big assignment, but of course this picture maybe that this is a technique of selectively processing and black and white, making a black and white out of it through masks and everything. So this picture is 90% Photoshop and 10% photography. Quite honestly.
Okay. So if you can just explain the different steps of your workflow, that will be very helpful.
See these images. These. I don't know what exactly these images are called, but this kind of creative images. What we do is, let's say this particular image, the sky that you see, that's artificial. It's not the real sky. Okay. Then the building, you have to manually select it either through automatic tools and then manually just zoom in to the last pixel and select it manually, the building,
Mhm.
make it separate. And then all, let's say the front face, the side face, the right face, maybe the bottom part of it, there is another front face where something is written, the building's name is written, company's name is written. So all these different blocks you have to manually select and manually do some black and white adjustments on them, use some gradient filters and masking and all. And it's, as I said, it is 90% Photoshop. In
Okay.
real life you'll never get a
Mm.
camera, I mean photo like this out of the
Okay.
camera.
Mm.
So masking is one major thing. uh, Gradient tool is another thing, the black and white. And then you have to select, in fact you have to imagine a lot that the direction of light, I mean if you see overall the direction of this light, you'll see that it is coming from the left hand side of the image.
Right.
So that also you can enhance it.
Mm.
In the actual image it might not be that way. There
Okay.
could be a
Mm.
subtle hint of the
Mm.
direction of light,
Right.
but you have to just bring it out in this kind of images.
Right.
So so as I said, in short, it is manually selecting every part of the image and
Okay.
using a gradient tool with masks and everything, and you have to repair those masks also. So it's a very
Right.
lot of layers.
So, if you can give us some idea on how much time did you spend shooting this picture and how much time did you spend in post processing, that would be very helpful.
Shooting this picture is 1/60th or 1/200th of a second, whatever
Uh,
that shutter speed.
right. Right.
It was not a big deal.
Uh-huh.
In
Mm.
fact, see this technique, even if you shoot with a mobile phone, but the technique makes the Photoshop techniques makes this image.
Right.
Yeah, of course, if you print out, take a print out of it, a mobile picture is different, and a
Mm.
SLR or a
Right.
DSLR picture is
Right.
different resolution wise. But as far as the look and feel of this kind of images, uh, even a cell phone picture, you just take a color picture, nice angle and all. So
Right.
photography is not that much important uh, in this kind of images. Photoshop, I might have spent maybe not that much, but 3 hours or something on this image.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 hours. Great.
Because every minute detail, see, I mean, even quite honestly, on this image, I haven't gone till the extremes. So I've
Okay.
seen people's work where, if you see the lines in the every floor, between the every
Right.
floor,
Yeah.
so people selectively choose those lines also,
Okay.
and
Mm.
they work on that individual lines that you see on every floor. So I haven't gone that detailed also in this image, but still it took me 2 to 3 hours.
Very nice. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. So this was there is a place called Saswad near Pune.
Right.
You know it. We
Right.
go there for
Mm.
wolves,
Mm.
and people miss out with, as I said, if you're see in photojournalism,
Mm.
I don't know whose quote it is, but what it means is, if you have something happening in front of you, if you have gone to cover some event, something is happening in front of you, so they say that turn your back, don't look at the main event that is happening in front of you, turn your back and you will see some interesting images around you.
Okay. Very interesting.
And so this is very,
Uh,
I mean, I took it very seriously. And so, like, as I said, go to a tiger reserve, don't run behind a tiger, then you'll see the entire gamut of wildlife that's available, that's there
right.
in that. See,
Right.
when we go in a group in a tiger reserve,
Mm.
it's very difficult for your group to convince your group that let's wait here for some time,
Mm.
you get a nice landscape here.
Right.
Maybe a very dramatic light and it's a
Right.
jungle and there is no animal, it's just a jungle. The moment you stop, your driver, your guide, and maybe some fellow travelers, they will say, tiger, where is tiger? So this place, this is Chinkara. And when you go to this Saswad and all, early morning or late evening, of course, this was early morning.
Mm.
So you see this chinkaras, but you ignore them. Most people ignore them
Right.
because the light is not good. It's very
Mm-hmm.
low light, twilight, and chinkaras are very obvious there. You don't have to hunt for them. Like wolves, you have to search them.
Right.
But chinkaras, unless you get a very standard bright light action jumping chinkara and all, people don't wait. So this place, we waited there. I anticipated that sometime it will come on the skyline. There was a beautiful sky. So that's how I got this image. And of course, this image was there in my mind before shooting. Most of the times I do that. That I
Okay.
have when I go somewhere. Uh, I have that I will be, of course, if there is a surprise, you don't have any choice. But
Mm.
as far as possible, that image has to be ready in your mind. It could be some action, it could be some seal out, it could be anything. But firstly, it has to be in your mind, and then your cameras and your techniques, they will just translate it. So that's how I got this image.
So,
I had a series of 2 3 images in similar way, but this was the most,
okay.
I mean, the pose of that animal.
Right.
And if you notice the
Beautiful.
deliberate choice of having the horizon at the bottom of the frame,
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful.
these are some compositional aspects. This was
Right.
taken with a 200 600
Okay.
lens,
Okay.
Sony.
So for you, pre-visualization is a very, very important aspect. So you already decide before you take a picture what you really want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, when I reach there at a place, it's not that before going to the place I have that checklist of some images, but maybe some idea. But when you once you reach there and you see the location and see the light and everything, I anticipate that something like this is what I want in my final image. Then the exposure part and the technique part is just a mechanical thing. I mean, see, in photography, this uh, technique everybody can copy. If I tell you the shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and the lens used and the camera used, everybody with that camera and that lens and shutter speed, aperture, ISO can sit there with a tripod and get the same exposure. But
Right. Right.
where, at what point of time, at what angle, where to shoot, what is your image, waiting for that right moment. These are all photographers' contribution. I mean, your identity is your composition, not your technique.
Right.
Shutter speed, aperture, ISO is just, I mean, sometimes when I see, if you see a good image and you see somebody asking what was the shutter speed, aperture, ISO, I get irritated. I mean, this image was not because of my shutter speed, aperture, ISO.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
The thought process,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
the pre-visualization.
Right. Right. So, Kedar, once you come back from a trip, how do you sort out your pictures? How do you store them? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, first thing that I do, even in the field, of course, everybody has your own way of looking at it. But even during the trip, every day, like let's say I'm at Tadoba or some place, and when you go home, I mean, you're in your room, uh, after dinner or something, before sleeping, I simply delete a lot of images in camera itself, which are very obvious because you shoot a lot of images. And so number one thing, delete in camera. Some people don't prefer it. That's your choice, but I do it. So there, most of the images are gone. After coming back from the trip,
So, you delete in the camera, I mean, at which point of time? Suppose you are going for a safari. So, I mean, when would you delete in the camera?
uh, after coming to the room, I
After
won't
coming to the
waste.
room.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I won't waste time on fill for
Okay.
deleting because I might miss something, and
Right. Right.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I prefer it going back to the room
Okay.
that night. And of course, during the trip also, every day I take two copies. I take two hard disks, external USB hard disks,
Okay.
and every night before sleeping, I make it sure that all my memory cards are dumped into two copies, not on the laptop, but two separate hard disks,
Great.
USB
Great.
hard disks.
Hmm.
It's like a discipline that I follow. And then of course after coming back home, uh, f- uh, earlier I used to use Windows. So in Windows I used to use this software called Fast Stone Viewer.
Hmm.
Amazing freeware.
Hmm. Hmm.
It doesn't edit, it does some JPEG editing. It's not a editor per se, but it's amazing software, a very tiny free software for
Hmm.
deleting images. I mean,
Okay.
uh, yeah, once I had given one talk on the art. It was called as the art of deleting. I mean,
Okay.
rather than shooting, I
Hmm.
conducted one workshop of how to delete your images.
Okay. Great. Very interesting.
Yes,
Okay.
so in that Fastone viewer, those who are Windows,
Hmm.
uh, you can compare two images. You can quickly browse through every kind of
Okay.
raw image,
Okay.
any brand.
Okay.
All raw images can be seen
Hmm.
full screen. You can go through it. You can delete immediately. You can compare two images side by side at 100% view, and quickly make a choice, mark them, delete them. So that's one way. Now with this, now I use this Mac. So on Mac it's not there. Fastone Viewer is not there.
Okay.
So I delete it on Bridge, Adobe Bridge,
Okay.
either Adobe Bridge or Lightroom.
Okay. Hmm.
And uh, first I mark the rejected images,
Okay.
and then once they are rejected,
Hmm.
uh, I just go through them once again, just to make
Okay.
sure that I won't accidentally permanently delete anything.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And then I quickly, I mean, I don't waste a lot of time in deleting images. I am very fast at deleting images.
Okay.
In
Okay.
fact, I can tell you, if I go to Tadoba today, I'm
Hmm.
just repeating Tadoba because I often go to Tadoba, but
Okay.
anywhere, uh, once I come back, maybe on field, I have shot some, let's say, 1,000 images. After coming back, I'll just retain 100 or 150 images. Maybe 90% of the images I religiously delete. For 2 3 days I just keep on deleting images.
Okay. Okay.
In fact, I just uh, I don't go home and immediately open the image and start editing it.
Okay.
Number one thing is I delete images thoroughly. I mean, 90% of the images I delete,
Okay.
because what I realized over the years is we just fill up our hard disks, and once one hard disk is over, we finished another hard disk, and we have a pile of hard disks. And when some publication asks you for some image, it becomes a pain to go through all that images. And let's say you have a tiger image, a head-on tiger, with the 20 fps and all cameras, you get thousands of images of the same kind of head-on tiger, hundreds of images.
Right. Right.
But the way I think about it is, when I delete images, is if I have a sequence of, let's say, 100 images of almost similar poses of the tiger looking straight in the camera, slightly here and there, maybe once it opens its mouth, or some different actions.
Right.
What I look at it is that tomorrow, if a publication calls me and tells me that give us a nice image of that particular tiger,
Mhm.
so, and they will say that just send me 2 images or 3 images, then out of that,
Right.
which will I select?
Right.
I'll select the best out of it, and
Mhm.
that's the point. Rest of the images, they are sharp, they are properly exposed, they're wonderful images.
Right.
But out of that lot, only 2, 3, 4 images out of that one sequence, the
Mhm.
burst mode, 2, 3 images are really worthwhile keeping it for lifetime. Rest images, delete them. Although you feel that no, I'll keep it, maybe I'll use it sometime, you never go to those images. So thoroughly delete your images. That's my number one suggestion to, and rather than shooting, learn deleting.
Yeah, that's a very, very important tip that you said, because a lot of people find it very, very difficult to delete their images. Yeah, that's something very, very important. And they
Lazy
end up,
about deleting. They actually get lazy about deleting, and we feel that, okay, you see tiger is looking here, हाँ ये अच्छा photo है, ये इधर देख रहा है, ये भी सामने देख रहा है, ये भी
right.
अच्छा है. But you have to imagine that if some publication asks you, then you'll keep the best, you'll just give one image out of that 3 images,
Absolutely.
which
Absolutely.
is that image.
True.
Rest is just occupying your hard disk. And
Right.
then when you really want to dig through your images, it becomes very difficult to search the best image.
Right.
So my database is very short. I mean,
Great. Great.
uh,
So,
just imagine an entire Tadoba trip,
mm,
4 5 days.
mm,
I might retain only 150 or 200 images
okay.
max.
Okay. Okay.
I just make sure that those images are good quality.
Right.
That doesn't
And
mean I'm not shooting more,
mm, mm,
but I retain
right.
that.
So there are a lot of places that you go maybe once in a year, and there are a lot of places like Tadoba where you go very frequently. So how do you organize your folders?
Uh, Physically on the hard disks, year wise,
Okay.
in the sense, 2020 2019 will be another big folder, and
Okay.
within that folder, month wise,
Hmm.
and inside that, of course, a very simple way, date and followed by the name of that
Okay.
place, or some keywords. You see, my search thing is irrespective of Lightroom catalog, or that
Okay.
cataloging thing.
Okay.
So in case tomorrow I stop using Lightroom, still my folder names and my file names are searchable with the default file system.
Right.
Another
Right.
advantage of this simple way of folder structure, year first, then month, and then the date, whatever, is that when I physically take a second copy of it, backup of it,
Mm.
so I don't, if I organize it alphabetically, let's say Kaziranga and Tadoba, Kaziranga will come up, Tadoba will go down alphabetical.
Right. Right.
Then I don't know whether I have copied. Then there'll be some. If I go to another place, Iceland will be somewhere up.
Right. Right.
But then I don't know where did I copy this. So date
True.
wise, I'm assured I have taken this much backup, so I won't be worried about the above folders, and just take a copy of this remaining folders.
Okay. And how do you organize your raw files and your JPEG files, and maybe the other file formats that you use, probably TIFF? So how do you do that?
TIFF I don't retain, I don't save them.
Okay.
Raws I save them. I use Photoshop, of course,
Okay.
with the XMP files, the raw edits that I have done at that point of time.
Right.
And JPEGs, very few I save, quite honestly, because it has happened a lot of time that, see, even today, I edit one image, I save it as a JPEG. It could be one amazing image of anything.
Right.
Uh, After 2 years or 1 year, even let's say even 6 months, I learned some new technique, new way, and softwares get advanced.
Right. Right.
And then within 2 years, we find that, oh, that image was not processed that good. You yourself improve your quality as
Absolutely.
you grow up.
True. True.
And then there is no point in keeping that JPEG
Mm.
image. Of course, if they are extraordinary images, then like this black and white image that I have processed, the architectural image that I showed.
Right.
So there I do save it as a JPEG because that editing part is out of raw images. It's not raw editing.
Right.
So it's TIFF or JPEG. So I save them separately, but separately not in this uh, main database. Main database will be the raw unedited data,
Okay.
the images I mean.
Okay.
But the saved images, the edited images will be saved in a processed folder. I have a folder called processed.
Okay.
So
Great.
all goes there.
Mm.
And raw is your asset. JPEG is
Mm.
like you can come back to it anytime. You can
Right.
always re-edit your raw.
Right. Right.
Unless it's like that architectural photo, you have spent a lot of time, and maybe, and sometimes it happens like that particular technique,
Right.
that architectural black and white creative image. Uh, you cannot repeat that same image because it's all artificial in that image. Wildlife and all, it's fair enough, landscape, wildlife, but that architectural where a lot of artificial Photoshop is involved,
Right.
the manipulation part,
Mm.
quite honestly. So that you might not be able to reproduce it after some time. So
True.
there, only in that cases, I save this as a
Mm.
JPEG or TIFF.
Okay. Great. So let us move to the next image. Yeah. Iceland.
Yeah. So my favorite place, I have been here 3 times till
Okay.
date, and maybe next year also I'm going
Mm-hmm.
September. Uh, so this is a place called as Diamond Beach in
Mm.
Iceland, and those who have seen this Hindi song Gerua, Shah Rukh
Right.
Khan,
Right.
I forgot the name of that movie, Dilwale. I'm not very fond of Hindi cinemas, but first time when I went to Iceland, so most of the participants, those who were willing to come to Iceland for photography,
Mm.
the number one question that they asked me was, "Is this the same place that Gerua song and the Game of Thrones?" Yeah.
Right. Right.
So in fact, I don't even watch Game of Thrones, but that's the impact of cinema and television.
Right.
So this is a place called Diamond Beach, and this huge chunks of ice, they flow from the glacier to the river, and it meets that river. That place meets the ocean, and these huge chunks, they just, I mean, they are lying around the entire coastline of this Diamond Beach. And when you go there, you are overwhelmed. I mean, you find it difficult, firstly, to choose your composition,
Mm. Mm.
and then this particular image, as far as technique is concerned, it's a slow shutter speed. Particularly for this image, not exactly, but it could be half a second or 1 second, in that range. If you go too slow, you don't get those lines. You
Right.
just get that plain whitewashed kind of images. And if you go too slow with the shutter speed in this kind of images where you have a
Right.
wave, so ideally you should try one. I'm depending on the speed of the wave also, but how fast it's coming or how fast it is going back. But typically half second, 1/4 second, sometimes 1/8. That gives enough blur or enough lines in your motion, the motion blur kind of thing, the slow shutter speed blur, whatever it is called. So that's how it was done. It was shot with a 16 lens, wide angle lens on a
Mm.
tripod,
Okay.
and this, if you see the sand, it is all black.
Right.
Yeah. So exposure is also very, and most of the times this place, Diamond Beach, is not in a very bright light kind of situation. I mean, when third time I've been there, this was the same light, very monsoon kind of situation. So you have to have a sturdy tripod, a very sturdy tripod, and then there is wind, there is rain, and with all those things, you have to be ready for that climatic things.
Right.
It's easier said than done. It's very difficult. I
Right.
mean, to shoot here, uh,
Right. Right.
you have to walk throughout that beach to find out your compositions.
Hmm. Hmm.
This place is also called as Yokul Sirlon.
Okay.
Uh, it's if you the spelling is J O.
Hmm.
Icelandic names are
Hmm.
extremely difficult.
Right.
But they spell it as Yokul
Hmm.
Sirlon. J is silent. Jokul Sirlon if you spell it with without that accent, but it's Yokul Sirlon or
Okay.
Diamond Beach.
So, Kedar, if somebody wants to join you for a tour like this, so where can they get the updates?
It's on my website. It's kedarbhat.com.
Okay. So, guys, I've already mentioned the links in the description. So, if you see the description, you will find Kedar's Instagram and Facebook and the website details. So, if you want to join him for a trip, you can always reach out to him.
So September, I'm next September 2021, if things are all right.
Okay.
Even right now, Iceland is open,
Mhm.
but Indian international flights are not open, and
Right.
right now it's all dicey situation. Nobody's in the mindset of traveling
Traveling.
abroad.
True. True.
In fact, I had one trip planned, but fortunately, we hadn't done the bookings.
Mhm.
So, but Iceland is like you just point your camera, even if you have a mobile phone, you point it anywhere. It's like a heaven. And I'm sure, I mean, Ladakh also has that equal potential.
Right.
Uh, Ladakh, what I have seen is we go to some very typical touristy places.
Right. Right.
So even Ladakh has nice potential. But Iceland, I mean, Game of Thrones, most of it is shot there. Yeah.
Okay. So, Kedar, one question I want to ask is because you go to these places several times, places like Tadoba, places like Iceland, you have been so many times. So, what do you do differently? Doesn't it get repetitive when you go to the same place again and again?
Yeah. This, as far as wildlife is concerned, see, photography, getting good images is, I mean, for me, that's we go there for good images and all. But if you ask me, being there in the jungle, in that known mobile network, uh, you go there and you just have nice food. Entire day you are in the jungle, you listen to the sounds. That experience is, see, uh, I've seen a lot of photographers who go to these tiger reserves,
Right.
Ranthambore tiger,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And if you see while coming out of the safari jungles uh, at the gate, you can easily point out people, gypsies who haven't seen a tiger and who have seen a tiger
That's right.
from the faces. If you see a very disappointed group of people in some gypsy, 100% they have not seen a tiger. So, point is, we don't go to a tiger reserve just for the sake of taking pictures of a tiger. Pictures are there. You have a camera, you have the technique, you have the knowledge. You are bound to get good images. Not a big deal, quite honestly. But if you come out disappointed from the jungle, then even if you have a good image, that's of no value. I mean,
Absolutely.
we
Absolutely.
take pictures because we love that experience and we like that, okay, this experience should be shared with the people. Going to a jungle itself is a experience in the first place. Photography is
Absolutely.
second thing.
Right, right. I think, I mean, this is something very important. Everybody should listen to this. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
jungle is not just about tigers, but there are so many things you can shoot there.
Just being there and see paints, for example, February I've been to paint. So there is a in one area there is one night safari. So in that night safari, of course, there is no photography per se. You can take pictures, but that's not a very big deal.
Right,
At night safari, we just went to one spot and switched off all lights, switched off the vehicle, and pin drop silence. Just watch the stars, listen to the sounds, listen to any animals or any birds at night, owls or something. And that's out of the earth experience.
Wow.
Photography, yes, you will get. You have the technique, you have the knowledge and all. You'll get images, but don't forget that experience is the first thing. Uh,
Right. Right.
Photography will happen.
Right. Great.
Never come out of a jungle disappointed just because you don't get a picture of a tiger.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Very important. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Please tell us a little bit about this image.
So this was see Iceland. This 67 degree north or something, about 60 degree. I don't know the exact number, but that's the northern latitude. And about those latitudes, in those latitudes, uh, because of some magnetic phenomena, the North Pole and the South Pole of the Earth, you get this green colored lights in the sky. They are called as auroras, the northern lights. The northern continent, we call it Aurora Borealis, and the southern part, the South Pole polar region, the auroras, they are called as Aurora Australis. And these auroras are basically charged solar particles, solar winds, or whatever you call it. When they interact with the ionosphere or the charged particles of the earth, they give out this green colored lights. And with naked eyes, you'll see those lights moving in the night sky. They just call it lights. I mean, not northern lights or auroras. Every time they don't call it auroras. So if you go to Iceland, they will say today we saw lights. It means they
Okay.
saw aurora.
Okay. Okay.
So these lights, so they just dance in the night sky, and it's an amazing experience. And in Iceland particularly, there are two reasons I repeatedly go to Iceland. Firstly, Northern Lights is one thing, but Northern Lights you can also get it in Norway and those places. But Iceland, daytime you can shoot amazing landscapes. So you get amazing landscape photography, and at night, uh, this aurora. Now, these auroras, the intensity of that aurora is uh, sometimes it's very faint, and sometimes they are very bright. And in fact, if they are extraordinarily bright, then in the capital of Iceland, Reykjavik, so sometimes they switch off the lights just for the people to watch the auroras.
Wow.
So yeah, and even in from the city you can see it in the night sky. In this picture was taken last February, 2019,
Hmm.
and when on the first when we landed in Reykjavik, the capital, and we were on the way to our uh, Airbnb accommodation.
Okay.
On the way itself, from the vehicle itself, our driver, the local guy, he spotted that tonight we have chances. There could be some lights in the night sky. He was seeing some faint lights. We reached at that accommodation, and while we were having dinner, the owner of that place, he came running inside. Lights, lights, lights! Come out, come out!
Okay.
So on the first night, we haven't even taken out our cameras and all. So from the city, from the capital itself, we saw Northern Lights, and that was
Wow.
our first Northern. I mean, it's an amazing experience to watch that Northern Lights. And I'll just tell you, now this particular image was not the first day picture. It was on third, fourth night or something like that. And I'll tell one thing. One interesting experience that during the dinner time, whatever the owner, he called us that there were lights, just go out and see them.
Right.
What I did was I quickly just grabbed my camera as it was with whatever lens I had, of course a slightly wide angle. I think I had a 1635 already on it. I
Okay.
just grabbed it and forgot about the tripod and everything. I just said, let me first have a look. Of course, I had a camera. And then whatever was possible, handheld, high ISO and everything, big aperture and whatever, I started shooting. And then within few minutes, they were gone. And there was
Okay.
another fellow photographer.
Hmm.
Instead of seeing that lights, he went to grab his tripod, his camera, changed lenses, and he spent some 10-15 minutes in it. And you also have to gear up. It's cold. It was all ice outside. So you have to wear all those clothes and everything. And by the time he reached out, the lights were gone.
Oh my.
So, see, if it's your first time, as I said, even for the tiger, if it's your first time, just grab it, go, whatever, shoot it. but don't waste time in unless I have that entire set. First experience it. First look what is Aurora.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, as far as technique is concerned, shooting Aurora, it's a simple, just like you shoot Milky Way.
Okay.
Short exposures. Only thing is, for auroras, you have to have short exposures. You don't have, if you use a very long exposure, like 30 seconds or so, the moving lights, they will, in 30 seconds, they'll just give a patch,
Ah,
just like those waves.
right.
So
Right.
if you want to see the patterns, if you see, you can see the lines and all.
Right. Right.
So if you want to capture that pattern, the structure of that aurora, of the dancing lights,
Right.
your exposure shutter speed should be around 5 seconds,
Hmm.
around 5 seconds. If they are
Right.
very bright, then maybe 2 seconds.
Right.
Otherwise, for a long exposure, you'll just get a, it won't look like aurora, it will just look like a green sky, because they're moving, they're continuously moving.
Hmm.
Once you see it here, then you see it here, and they're actually dancing lights.
Hmm.
It's amazing experience.
Very nice. Great.
And if you go there in winter, the daytime is hardly 5-6 hours.
Okay.
So you have a lot of a very big night. So chances of seeing aurora is more if you go in the month of December. And I have been to Iceland once in December, once in June, that's so winter, summer, and once in February.
Okay.
So I've seen a lot of seasons in Iceland.
Great. Wow.
Yeah.
There's the that song in Gerua, the
Yeah, yeah.
Gerua movie.
Gurua
Yeah.
song. So those who are watching this, just go to YouTube later on and just go search for this Gerua, Gerua, Shah Rukh Khan, his song, and these are all the places where we go. That song is like our itinerary. And this place is a plane wreck. It was, I think, in 1973. There was U.S. naval aircraft which had fallen there because of
Hmm.
some lack of fuel or something,
Okay.
emergency landing or something.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is a private land. It belongs to one farmer there,
Okay.
and so this U.S. defense people, they just took away all the machinery, and I mean the engine and everything, the important parts, and they left the body there.
Okay.
Now this has become a hot spot of the pre-weddings or tourist
Right.
spot, of
Right.
course, even a tourism. Every time I've been here, there are at least 2 to 3 pre-wedding shoots here.
Right.
And most interesting thing is at this spot where the plane is there, there is no changing room or nothing,
Okay.
nothing,
Hmm.
no construction here.
Hmm.
And to reach this place from the parking, you have to walk around 4 to 5 kilometers.
Okay. Hmm.
So those pre-wedding people, they have to be full dressed, dressed up, and walk for that 4 to 5
Oh
kilometers.
my God.
Yeah, I've seen people, somebody catching hold of that gown of that bride, and they're walking for 4 or 5 kilometers for the
Very
pictures.
interesting. Very interesting.
And this is an amazing place, and you also get some local, sometimes it is there, sometimes it's not there, some local transport there. There's one that farmer has organized, so if you don't want to walk, you can go there. And I mean, every time I have been here, it's highly windy, except this
Okay.
particular time. The second time I have been there, but first and the third time I have been there, it's highly windy. I mean, you cannot take out your camera. You come
Okay.
here, you are here after traveling and spending a lot of money. You reach there, but you cannot take out your camera because it's so windy.
Hmm.
It's not possible. You will simply damage your camera.
Great.
Amazing place. I mean, you can also. I've seen some images where people have shot northern lights with this as the foreground.
Wow. Must be amazing.
So,
Great.
so
Great.
amazing place. It's. I mean, otherwise it's just a fallen plane, fallen aircraft. So, but they have made it a nice tourist destination.
Great, great. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us today evening. So, if you have any question that you want to ask Kedar, you can always type in the comment box, and so we'll take the questions after a couple of minutes. And if you want to get some updates on the events that we are doing every Saturday and Sunday we have two sessions, one at 4 and one at 6. So please make sure you subscribe for the channel. You see there's a red button right at the bottom corner, so you can subscribe. And now we'll continue once again with the pictures. Yeah. So we'll move to the next one.
Yeah.
Wow, what is this?
So this is this is called as, otherwise if you Google it, it's called as physiogram.
Okay.
Physiogram. But in a nutshell, this is like it's like a pendulum. So you have a long thread, and at the end of the pendulum, at the end of the thread, you tie up some head torch or some torch, flashlight, a faint LED light out of anything, and let the pendulum, I mean the light that becomes a pendulum, and let it, give it some motion, and naturally when it rotates, it has its own motion, it creates these patterns. So what you have to do is, if this is your string, you have hanged it somewhere, this is your light, and it's moving like this. At the bottom of that, you place your camera upside down in completely, absolutely pitch dark room, studio, whatever. There shouldn't be a single hint of any outside light.
Okay.
And you have to take some trial exposures for, now this could be some, could be 1 minute, or I don't know exactly.
This
but
is 30 seconds, I can see.
30 seconds, okay.
Yeah.
So roughly 30 seconds, 1 minute, depending on how long you want to go.
Okay.
You can continue, because every time it will follow a different path. So it won't repeat the same line.
Okay.
So you can go on for 5 minutes if you want. So you'll get a longer pattern.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So, and the trick is, tricky part is, manually you have to focus it. It's, your camera has to face upside down. And then you have to, in the dark itself, you have to anticipate your frame, the angle of coverage. And then first have some trial exposures, how long the swing you want. And once it is swinging, just leave it. And within maybe first 15-20 swings, it settles down, because first when you start with it, it has a jerk. But after 10-15 seconds, it settles, and then you get this nice smooth patterns. And then this was with a one single flashlight.
Okay.
Down, but I've seen people doing it with multiple lights on a rod or something, some do-it-yourself stuff.
Okay.
And then they put it on some different moving platforms, and then they create these physiograms with geometric patterns. So this is otherwise called as physiogram.
Physiogram. Okay.
Physiogram, and it's simply a long exposure of moving light.
Very interesting.
I mean, startle photography is exactly same.
Oh, right. Wow, what is this?
Yeah. So this is pollen grain. So for this, I received one award in US, National Wildlife Federation.
Okay, congratulations.
Pardon? Yeah, thank you. This is a tiny piece of grass. The entire frame that you see, that could be 2 inches maybe.
Okay.
Very short, small thing. And around November, December, even in your area, SGNP or any national parks around, you'll see this grass blades with this tiny red seeds. And if you just tap it slightly, you'll see this white powder, talcum powder like thing coming out of it. That is the pollen grain that comes out of it.
Okay.
Okay, so this for naked eyes, it looks like some powder coming out of it. You don't see that individual grains, of course.
Okay.
Now this image particularly was the first time you see this image, the number one comment that I get is, was it shot in a studio? Because of the dark background and everything.
Right.
Looks like a perfect composed and everything. But it's not possible to get it. The moment you pluck it, the pollen is gone.
Right.
Just tap it slightly, the pollen is gone. So this was shot in field. This was shot rather in Yeur, Sanjay Gandhi National Park, the Yeur area of Sanjay Gandhi National Park. On the roadside, everywhere it's there. And the technique is flash photography. Use a flash early morning when there's no bright sunlight on it. whatever the fastest shutter speed your camera allows with the flash. It could be 160 or 200 or 250 shutter speed.
Right.
16 or something like that aperture, small aperture, lowest ISO, and a nice flash off camera. This off camera flash is very important. If you shoot it head
Right.
on, you won't get that glow in that image. So
Right.
this particular flash was used from almost 90-degree,
Okay.
maybe more than that, from
Very
slightly
nice.
behind. And
Very
one
nice.
slight, I mean, there was another flash, I think, from the top of it, just to fill it, to fill the blade part of it. And this flash, what happens is with this high shutter speed, 250 shutter speed, 16 aperture, 100 ISO, and early morning, no sunlight on that grass. Available light is almost zero. The available light exposure. So that's almost zero. So black. The only
Right.
light that is captured is the flashlight, and that flash
Right.
goes in what fraction of a second, a millionth.
Right. Right.
So that freezes that motion. So
Right.
that's how this image was taken. And this, see, this image got an award because it's something different that you see. You have
Very
seen a lot
different.
of,
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very different.
you see a lot of macro, you see a lot of insects,
True.
flowers, tigers, sunrise, sunset. But if a competition judge is going through thousands of images, while going, he has to wait. What is this? I mean,
Absolutely.
it has to catch attention of that judge. So, I mean, when people are submitting to a contest, you have to keep it in mind that is it something different, or
Right.
is it just because you have shot a tiger doesn't mean it's a great image. It is a good image for your collection, but for a competition, a tiger image, sunrise, sunset image, you just go through it.
Right.
Don't wait for that.
True.
They are good. They are good, properly exposed, sharp. It could be some nice action also, but that's fair enough. Yeah. So this was this recent
Eclipse.
solar eclipse, and this was again through. This was not a telescope. This is a proper telescope that you see.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, this is a 4-inch. Those who understand astronomy, this is a 4-inch telescope, Maksuto Cassegrain telescope. And you can remove the eyepiece and you can have your camera on it. And
Okay.
in photographic terms, it is. Let me just check. It is. I think 1600 millimeters.
Okay.
Millimeters
Okay.
and f11 or something, that kind of diameter. Yeah, it's 1300, 1250 millimeters.
Wow.
So you're shooting at 1200 millimeters, and further, if you have a crop sensor and multiplier or whatever, you go to that. So telescope. I mean, forget the telescope. This was with a 600 lens, 600 Sony, and focusing is the key in this kind of images. And I have a very nice proper solar filter, and fortunately that fits exactly on the lens barrel of the 200-600. That's a
Okay.
coincidence, because that filter is with me for almost 15 years now.
Wow.
But even now, fortunately, it exactly fits. It's like a pipe that exactly fits on my lens, and it's a full aperture filter. Nowadays, of course, you can shoot it with a mylar filter or something. Don't point your camera directly at the sun without any filter. And some people also make a mistake of having a dark welding glass or a mylar filter at the eyepiece end of the camera. So what happens is that entire sunlight is the lens is focusing on the sensor, and it is burning the sensor. So filter the light at the source, so at the front of the lens.
Right.
So you get a mylar sheet. With a mylar sheet, you get a slightly bluish or whitish sun, and this is a semi-coated glass, meaning it's a transparent piece of glass which is aluminized, but it is not fully aluminized to make it opaque. It transmits some, I don't know the exact number, but maybe 10% of the light. It's like a 20 or maybe more, 15 or 20 stops neutral density filter, in short.
Okay.
So That's how it's taken. And the manual focus is very important for this kind of images.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Of course, this was in Pune, so it was a partial eclipse for me. And I had a plan to go north, but you all know it's the COVID situation.
Right.
Okay, so we have included this image also. So this
Oh,
is
I
a
think you sent
yeah.
it to me. Yeah.
A lot of people have this thing as how weatherproof is Sony equipment. So this is how weatherproof. This was in Iceland, and 3 Iceland trips. Nothing has happened to my camera.
Wow. Great.
And okay, one thing that I follow is when your camera gets this weight, your equipment gets this weight. I always carry with me wherever I go in any season. I carry a hair dryer with me. So when I come back to the room or wherever possible after this kind of situation for your camera, uh, I blow my hair dryer on my camera just to make it dry. And another small tip, if you're shooting in icy or sub-zero temperatures, uh, if your camera is out in the cold sub-zero temperatures for a very long time, and you're coming back to the room which is at room temperature, because there
Right.
are heaters inside. So this thing, when suddenly your entire camera is at 0 degree or something like that temperature, and you're bringing it in room temperature 18 degrees or 20 plus degrees, 20 degrees around,
Right.
suddenly there is condensation
Right.
because of the temperature difference. So the trick is, while you are outside in the sub-zero temperature for a long time, where your camera is cold, physically the camera is very cold, put it inside a airtight bag while it is outside, then bring it to the room, keep it in the room for some time till the temperature balances out. And the only condensation that will happen will be the slight condensation that will be there inside the zipped or airtight uh, polythene bag.
Right. That's a good tip.
Otherwise, if
Yeah.
you keep it in the open, it will just gather all the moisture from the room,
Right.
settle on the camera.
Right. That's
So
great.
that's one thing. Or else, while you are outside, keep it in your camera bag, close it thoroughly, bring it inside the room, keep it there in the room till the temperature comes down to the comes up to the room temperature. So that's the technique that you can use to avoid any damage to your camera.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah. Great tip.
Yeah. So this is as obviously a star trail photography, and
Right.
the central part that you see, the point, the center of all these circles, that's the pole star,
Right.
north Polaris, or the pole star. And you can also see one small streak of light, that's a meteor that's incidentally near the pole star. You can see a very faint streak of light.
Right. Yes, I
So,
can see.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that one is a meteor. And another thing is, most see, astrophotography, although I do some astrophotography, again, like wildlife photography, even astrophotography, Milky Way, star trail photography, uh, this is not serious astrophotography. I mean, if you
That's right.
come across some serious astrophotographer, he will laugh at you. I mean,
True.
because I have been through a lot of astrophotographers. I have very good photographer friends of mine who are very serious astrophotographers. For them, these are like, uh, okay, this is not astrophotography.
That's just a tip of the iceberg, you can say.
It's not
Probably
even
even not.
hardcore astrophotography is beyond reach of most of us. The
Right.
kind of
Like the
equipment,
deep skies.
yeah, and the kind of processing that you have to do with thousands of images, and you won't believe uh, this. If you see a picture of a galaxy or a nebula, a very colorful image, that could have been that today I shoot some 100 images. Next month, I should shoot another 100, 200, 500 images of the same nebula or galaxy. And all these images I combine into, through some software, into one nice colorful nebula or galaxy. That's astrophotography. This is startle photography, of course. And another thing that people have a doubt is that can we shoot while there is moon in the sky? Because people think that as the startle photography can be done only on a new moon night or absolutely pitch dark sky or something like that. So this is a classic example. The light on that room, on that house, is moonlight.
Moonlight. Okay.
Yeah, it's moonlight straight. It was almost a full moon.
Okay.
So the
Very
trick
beautiful.
is, with naked eyes, if you see the stars, there will be startle photograph. Rather, I prefer some, see, star trails per se, they are very boring, just lines.
That's right.
Take a picture, close up of those lines. You have achieved a technique, but it's not aesthetic. Startle photographies are made with interesting foregrounds. If your
Right.
foreground is not interesting,
Right.
that image is not.
Hmm.
It's only a scientific image.
Right. Right.
So you have to hunt for good foregrounds, and this is
Right.
moonlit foreground.
Hmm.
So that's
Right.
how it is taken. And no pole star.
Hmm.
If you point your camera towards the pole star, you get these circles around the pole stars. Pole star.
Now your tiger images.
Yeah.
The,
So both images are again, of course, see Tadoba. I repeat, keep on repeating Tadoba because every year till last 2 years I haven't been, but before that, every year I go to Tadoba at least 3 to 4 times a year.
wow.
But last 2 3 years, because I have a kid and all, and different priorities, I haven't been there. But this place was in near. There is a range called Kolsa in Tadoba, and these tigers, they are not grown-ups. They are cubs, not even very small cubs, slightly grown-up cubs, and they were around our vehicle almost for 1 hour, and they were simply playing around this entire area, just running here and there. And at one point of time, they just came close to each other, and that's the moment. I mean, technique wise, it's not a big deal. A big 600 lens and a standard exposure.
Right.
So what makes this image is the right moment when they are together, and whatever. I mean, the next image is almost same thing, the same two tigers.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful light.
Yeah, yeah,
The eye
amazing
is
light.
illuminated
Yeah.
so well.
Right.
Beautiful.
I mean, the light was exactly falling on the face of the
Right.
tigers. And see,
Beautiful.
another thing, in case you have noticed in all those images of mine, is I don't over process my images.
Absolutely.
I've seen this
Yeah.
latest style of a lot of photographers where you over process, and then a lot of colors, and if you go to that location, those colors are not there. And most of them are HDR-ish. I mean,
Right.
moment you see a picture, a landscape particularly, you can make out this is over processed. I mean, HDR also, I also do HDR. I do composite images, combine different exposures, but to a point that Photoshop is not visible in that image. So the moment you see a Photoshop, that processing in your images, I feel it's a failure of a photographer, because then you'll appreciate my Photoshop skill rather than my photography
Right.
skill.
Right. Right. And
Of course.
especially, I think the thought process is because you came from the film time, so
Yeah.
that's why you have this thought process.
Yeah, and
Okay.
even otherwise, if I hadn't been through that film
Hmm.
era, even then, I mean, I don't like those super
True.
colorful,
Absolutely agree.
overly processed Milky Ways.
Right.
Those colors
Right.
are not there. I mean, so these, I mean, the Milky Way is not that bright
Right.
that you
True.
see in most of the.
True. True.
So I prefer slight Photoshop to enhance it, but till a point that Photoshop is not visible in that image.
Right.
The moment you
True.
see Photoshop in that image, I feel that my photography is not up to the mark.
True.
Of course, that's my opinion.
Right. I agree. I agree. Beautiful.
This is the famous tigress Maya
Maya.
from Tadoba.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of light, I mean, I have shot a lot of images of Maya, and right from when she was a kid. So most of these families I have been there so many times, and I've followed these tigers. I mean, followed in the sense I don't do any extraordinary thing of following these tigers. Just going to the safari number of times. That's it. This was one amazing moment where this is Pandarponi. If those who have been to Tadoba, this is the Pandarponi lake, and she was just coming out of it and walking straight towards my camera. So otherwise, photographically, not a big deal. This is a job of a camera, but composition and the light that makes this image.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, getting this out of focus, golden reflection of the water is like a dream shot.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
Otherwise, you get a lot of thousands of images on the road, gypsy and crossing the road and everything, but that's like,
Right.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay. Coming back, this is a planet Venus, and just like in a solar eclipse, moon blocks the sun. Because they are of the same size, it completely blocks. But
Right.
Venus being far away, it looks like a tiny dot bindi kind of thing. And when it crosses the sun solar disk, there are websites where even in newspapers it will come out whenever it happens. This is called as a transit of Venus. So the inner planets, see, that's what I said. I mean, for astrophotography, you also need to understand some astronomy. So you have to follow some, like in wildlife photography.
Right.
So this transits, it can happen only of Venus and Mercury because they are inner planets. They only this Mercury and Venus can cross Sun. Jupiter and Saturn are behind us, so they won't cross the Sun. They can go behind the Sun, not front of the Sun. And otherwise, photographically, this is like shooting a solar eclipse, and it's only that Venus is crossing. So this dark spot that you see, that is
Right.
Venus. I don't remember the year of when it was shot, but it was some, again, same timeline, 10-15 years back. And incidentally, the same solar filter that I'm using today.
Okay. Okay. This is an amazing image.
Yeah.
Very.
And this is almost, this is on film. This was on film, a 400 ASA film. We used to get a ASA film instead of ISO.
Right.
So this was a Kodak 400 ASA film, and the camera had 3 FPS. The frame rate was 3 frames per second.
Okay.
Okay, and it was a negative of only 36 exposures. And see, that's the reason those who have come from the film era, for them, even with the digital, you have that inclination that every shot should be perfect. I mean,
Absolutely.
exposure wise, technique wise, it's so this film era people, they don't have this kind of if we call it a digital arrogance, that let's shoot, we'll see it later on.
Spray and pray, as they say it.
So the film era people, they have this, even with the digital, and they have a lot of memory cards and a lot of memory, they still have this habit of not
Right.
overshooting a
Right.
lot of images.
Right.
This image, 36, see, you have only 36 photos in that film. It was costly also. So this forest department people, they were ready with opening the door and door of the cage of the cage, and they just signaled me that now we are opening. I was in a vehicle inside it. Of course, after seeing these people, some people also suggested me this would have been a nice picture from the front, head on. Just imagine me head on with a jumping leopard.
That is also getting freed after so many days, probably.
It would have fed on me. So in any case, I was in a vehicle and ready for those forest people to open the door.
Right.
And if you notice, see, wildlife photography, for example, most beginners, they have this this habit of getting the longest lens and going as close to the subject as possible. That's the number. The moment you say wildlife photographer, if you carry this tiny lens, you are not a wildlife photographer. You need a
Right.
big lens.
Right. Right.
Whereas if you want storytelling images, you need some environment, some habitat shots, and that's the reason this image stands out. Even today, you won't
Absolutely.
see this kind of image.
Beautiful.
Of leopard.
Very nice.
See, in fact, you can also tell the MH04. So that's a Thane.
Right.
See the forest official
Mm.
with the single image. You can tell that this is a leopard which is being released back into the jungle. The area was Thane. There are forest
Right.
officials on top of it. So this
Right.
choice of
Right.
a wide angle is very important.
Right.
Focusing was manual. Manually, I focused that cage and that distance, and it was a burst mode of hardly 5 images, 4 to 5 images.
Okay.
The 36 exposures only. A fresh roll was there in my camera, but this burst was only 5 images at 3 frames per second.
Okay.
Out of that first image
Mm.
was no leopard in the frame.
Okay.
It was inside. The door is open.
Mm.
This is the second image.
Mm.
And the third image is the frame, the leopard is out of the frame. So
Great.
it was only one single image. Of course, this is a coincidence and some anticipation, of course. But otherwise, and of course, now with the 20 FPS, you need not worry about this skill. You just keep on shooting and you will get this kind of image. But the point is, the storytelling aspect is very important.
Absolutely.
And you have to be ready with your, as I said, pre-visualizing that image. I had visualized that I want this kind of image. I had planned accordingly a wide angle lens.
Right.
I did have a bigger lens, 200 or something like that. So otherwise I would have shot a 200 and close-up of that leopard jumping.
Mm.
But it doesn't tell any story whether that leopard is from a zoo or it is Sanjay Gandhi National Park or what is happening with that leopard. So the storytelling aspect is very important. So that's what I feel. And of course, now the quality of this image is just because it is a film print that has been scanned almost 20 years back.
It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Great. So it was wonderful to go through your pictures, Kedar. I absolutely loved it, and I'm sure the audience also loved it. Now we'll take a few questions.
Yeah.
So maybe another 5-10 minutes. We'll
You
see
have any questions?
what questions we have.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Okay. So, Dr. Nitin is asking, what lens do you normally use for your wildlife pictures?
I use a 200-600 Sony on a
Okay.
A7 Mark III, and I also have a 1.4x teleconverter on it.
Okay.
And it's a very, as you all know, it's a very lightweight. The lens doesn't come out of the barrel. It's internal zoom in, and I think you get it for around 1,40,000 roughly here and there. And it's a brilliant lens. And the versatility is what I love about it. 200-600, and see, these are very small things. Firstly, internal zooming, so the lens doesn't come out. So if you are on a tripod or a gimbal, your balance is maintained, and this in and out thing doesn't attract any dust, so there is no dust that can go inside.
Right.
200-600, it goes in a quarter turn. Rather than just keeping on turning from 200-600, within a quarter turn you can go from 200-600. And of course, Sony's focusing capabilities, you already know about it.
Right.
That's 200-600. And also I use see, when I go to Iceland is not wildlife centric, so hardly any there is wildlife, but then I don't go with the wildlife in my mind. So there I don't carry this. I carry a 100-400.
Okay.
So that works for in case I get some birds or anything, I can get it. But I can also do some landscape out of. So I have a 100-400 Sony and a 200-600 Sony.
Right.
And otherwise for wildlife, of course, I have a 90 macro for this macro subjects. I also have one interesting Laowa lens.
Okay.
Venus Optics, Laowa.
Right.
So that is a 15 macro. 15. So that is a 15 a wide angle macro. So you can shoot an animal in its habitat.
Wow, beautiful. I am seeing some pictures. They look really good.
Yeah.
So typically your Iceland trip is for how many days, Kedar?
It's around 8 days.
Okay.
Yeah, 10 days back. I mean, India to India, and roughly it costs around 3 lakh rupees.
Okay. So Hemlata was asking this question.
Okay.
So Abhijit sir is asking, what is your favorite photography destination?
For landscape or wildlife or what? See,
Okay,
landscape,
maybe. Yeah.
landscape, Iceland and here Ladakh, but more of Iceland. Uh, Wildlife, if you're when in wildlife, if you're talking about tigers, I mean tiger tourism, then Tadoba is like my second home. I've been there.
Okay.
I have walked in Tadoba when it was not a lot of people didn't used to go there. Nobody,
Wow.
hardly anybody used to go there, and I have seen tigers on foot long back. It was not
Wow.
nobody used to go to Tadoba.
Mhm.
So Tadoba is it's like my second home. And for macro, Amboli and Goa, the Bhagwan Mahavir Sanctuary, there is this nice place called Nature's Nest, just close to that uh, Bhagwan Mahavir Sanctuary. So you get most of the species that you get, macro species that you get in Amboli. So Amboli and Goa, my favorite for macro, and otherwise Tadoba tiger.
Great. And what is your favorite lens?
Favorite lens, 1635.
Okay, great. And your
Of course,
favorite
when you say
genre
wildlife,
of photography?
pardon?
Your favorite genre of photography?
Landscape. I see. I mean, it's not like I love photography. I love every kind of photography. So I do. In fact, I do some product photography also, but for some e-commerce website and something like that. So it's. I love technique. I mean, I'm a physics graduate, so I love the technique, the light thing. So I love wildlife. So in fact, if you see the images that I have sent, or maybe if people visit my website, that's
Right.
kedarbat.com.
Right.
Uh, my website is not focused on any particular genre of photography. So landscape, I have a separate love affair for landscape photography. Tiger and wildlife is a separate thing. Maybe I don't see as far as wildlife, let's say wildlife photography. Most of the people they have. I see this current trend that they go behind a particular species, like uh, throughout the season, that same species, like currently ODKF,
Right.
the colorful kingfisher.
Right. Right. Right.
I don't like that. I mean, you see thousands of that ODKF image the moment you open Facebook or Instagram today. You'll see thousands of them. So there is no favorite. I avoid if everybody is having the same images and it's just my one more image. I'm not contributing anything to that photography. So, but otherwise, I mean, I love every kind of photography, landscape,
Okay.
astro, but astro. It's not possible for me to have that high end equipment and that kind of dedication as far as time is concerned. So I don't have that right now. I don't have the luxury of having that, spending so much time and energy on astro. But astrophotography is something I really love, and I wish I had a career in astrophotography. I was doing MSc in astronomy,
Okay.
and long back I have shot some comets, comet Yakutake, comet Hellbob.
Okay.
So it's a different ball game, and but I love. I mean, I cannot choose between which genre of photography. I
Okay.
love everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So we'll take this one last question. So how many days does the aurora lights are visible in the sky?
Or these northern lights, they are there throughout the year.
Okay.
People don't go there in the summer just because in the summer, like June, uh, the night is hardly 4 5 hours.
Okay. Okay.
The chances of seeing aurora in at that point is very low. And
Okay.
aurora, these northern lights, northern or southern lights, whenever there is a lot of solar activity in the next few days, there are a lot of auroras. So it's like there is nothing hard and fast that in this season, this is the best season for aurora. But if you see logistically, if you go in September or February, you get daytime, you get nice landscape photography. Night, uh, half of the time is night, half of the time is day.
Okay.
So that way you can divide. I mean, you get that entire night. So in fact, let me share with you. The first trip was in December. Uh, 2017, I think. So December, highest possibility was for the Northern Lights. Almost hardly 5 hours of day and rest of it was night. But that entire 8 days, we couldn't see any aurora because of rains,
Hmm.
complete cloudy atmosphere.
Okay. Okay.
And for the images that you see of mine of the aurora, they are from the third trip. So
Okay.
this is like a tiger.
Hmm.
Cannot guarantee.
Okay.
No guarantee. You have to take a chance, but once it's there, it's amazing.
Okay. Great. So
Yeah.
I didn't realize that we have surpassed 100 minutes
Yeah.
talking to you. So that's amazing. So thank you so much, Kedar, for joining us today. So I'm really grateful to you for your time, and
Thank you, and thanks
really
to
grateful.
thanks to Saurabh for having me here. So best of luck to you too.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
And
you.
thank you the audience for bearing us for almost.
Yeah, I think the audience had a wonderful time. So there are a lot of appreciation, a lot of comments which I could not read, but
Thanks a lot.
yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So thank
Thank
you so
you.
much, Kedar. I'll see you sometime once this lockdown is over. And
Sure, anytime.
great, great.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
once again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.